Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you? Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I promise I picked on Alex pretty good last time. I promise I won't pick on him at all today. So he's safe.
So I'll just get us started with a quick introduction and then I'll let Dave take it over from there. I just want to thank the Middle Level Liaisons Planning Committee for helping to put this together. They're a huge help every year, but especially this year, we really had to rethink how we put this conference together and what would be most beneficial for middle school principals and middle school faculty across the state. So we're trying something new and everybody has been very flexible and very accommodating in putting this together. So I want to thank Winton, Sean, John, Bruce, Katie, Sean, Steve, and Joseph for all of their help in putting this together today. Similarly, our Essential Element Schools to Watch leadership team. We received applications from schools, but we know that this was a year like no other. So we worked very hard to really think about the big picture of what makes our schools to watch and what it is that the domains mean to our students and to our faculty and how we can think of new ways to recognize that. And Dave will get more in depth in that today during his presentation. So it's my pleasure to also thank Dave, Winton again, Tom, Nance, and Steve Zielinski. I'd also like to thank someone who isn't officially on any of my lists, but has always been a tremendous help to me and to the organization. She was actually the conference director for the New York State Middle School Association since the year 2005. So if you've ever been to a school professional development event, you very
was trying to just get across the use of breaks.
And I can't say enough about how selfless she is and helpful she has been to the organization, to me personally, and just really a person who embodies what it is to be a middle school leader and educator, very much committed to herself forward in a way that is beneficial to all students.
Thank you.
No, people are just at their max right now.
So I will now mute myself and let Dave take over.
That's okay. I haven't really started it yet.
Oh, you're running it?
No, I have my camera off right now.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to actually pass it to Katie for a little introductions, our moderator, and then we'll get going soon after that. Yeah, it would be a great idea if you could, just double check your microphone, make sure you're muted while the others are talking. I think with this many people, it kind of causes a lot of background noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everybody. Thanks for signing on today. I'm Katie Ralston, part of the Middle Level Liaisons Planning Committee, Regional 9 Director for New York State Middle School Association and 612 Principal at Cuba Rushford. So I would like to reiterate once again just what Dave said. Please do make sure your microphone is muted. Of course, as we go through the session, if you start to talk, feel free to unmute yourself. During the session today, I will be monitoring the chat. So as everyone's presenting, if you have a question, please type it right in the chat and I will make sure everyone that's presenting hears the question and we can answer that for you. So type right in the chat and we'll get that taken care of. So to introduce, we have Dave Roman he's a 6th grade science teacher at AA Kingston Middle School in Potsdam. He's also the co-director for the New York State Essential Element Schools to Watch program. He'll be presenting along with Dan Cook, who's the principal at AA Kingston Middle School in Potsdam also, Dr. Allison Glickman-Rogers from Oceanside Middle School, and Winton Buddington from Bay Trail Middle School. So I will hand it over to them and let them begin. And Dave, I'll also keep time for you as well. Do you want certain time warnings or? Okay. Yes. Got it.
You can keep us on track, Katie.
I always do.
So those of you who've been at Liaisons know that I like to get things going with warm welcomes and openers and things. So I want to do that with this group, and we're going to use the chat function today to do it. We're going to talk today about schools to watch and its impact and how these components and things have affected us, and we've used them through COVID. But so I do want to start with, we've all been through a lot with COVID, but there's been some positives, and I know this is a positive group, so we want to make sure we're on a positive note today. So in the chat, if you could just take a moment and briefly outline or list something, what's something for you, for your school, that has been positive about this past school year, because it was just about a year ago today that we were last in session. Our last liaisons was March 6th and 7th, I think, of 2019. And then we shut down. So in the past year, what's something positive that has come out of this experience for you or your school? Take a minute and just kind of list those in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'll just share one of mine, and that is the ability to utilize technology like Zoom to really connect more with parents. We've averaged over 40 parents or so at our PTA meetings now because they're via Zoom. So it's a much better participation rate than the 8 or so parents that when we were having meetings coming into the building. So that ability to connect with people and more people in a more effective way via Zoom has been a real positive for us. And Dave, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Whitten. Yeah, I agree with that too. I think like I said in my chat, I think the managerial technical component that we've asked our kids to master has been phenomenal. I think we kind of sold our kids short a little bit as to how well they can manage the whole our Google platform and classrooms and so on and so on and so on. It's been pretty impressive. So good afternoon, everybody. I see some very familiar faces. I see some somewhat familiar faces and some new faces, which is great. So therefore, I thought I would take a minute at first, not knowing exactly what the audience I would have, to just go through a little historical perspective of the School to Watch program and kind of what it's all about for some of you that may not be as familiar as others are with it. And then we'll break down the Schools to Watch program into what was called the 4 domains. And then each one of us, Winton and Allison and Dan and I, will kind of take one of them and just kind of go into a little more depth and kind of apply it to this whole situation that we've had. Aren't we having our anniversary this week? Isn't it our 1-year anniversary of the big crash? So we've had quite a year, to say the least. So I think one of the misconceptions of the School to Watch program is it gets viewed, I think, by a lot of people as a feather in a cap, an award to win, a recognition to receive. And it is, and it's a wonderful recognition, and it's an awful lot of work to get involved in that. It's run by an organization called the National Forums. The School to Watch program is run out of 18 states around the country. I think we're in the hundreds of schools that have been recognized across the country. But I think thinking that the School to Watch program recognition is just an award to win is doing it a little bit of a disservice. Because I think the more I've gotten involved in it, and right from the beginning, I think the true highlight of the program is using this program as a self-evaluation and a school improvement plan. That's where the School to Watch is like no other program I have ever seen. And I've been at this for 29 years. This is my 29th. It is the most comprehensive rubric. And those of you that have viewed the rubric multiple times know that there is no other tool that evaluates a middle school better than the School to Watch rubric does. It encompasses every component of a high-performing middle school. And if at all you're interested in taking a look at the mirror and taking a look at your own program, I can't find, and I don't think anybody that's been involved in the program can say that this rubric isn't the best self-evaluation tool. And that's exactly how we started. And, just to not go into the whole history, but I started like many of you, like where you were in the school. I was on the original writing team of my school's successful recognition in 2009. I remember looking at that rubric for the first time thinking that I just wanted to run and hide because it was just too overwhelming. The more you look at it, the more you embody it, I think you realize that there is no better tool. I've been involved in the program as a member of a successful school. I got involved in the Middle Schools Association. I got involved with the School to Watch program. And here in behold, I'm now the co-director to the state program. So I've seen it from every angle. And I think I might be the only one that's been that whole gamut. All right. But it doesn't mean that I'm more involved in the program than anybody else. The School to Watch program really embodies the 4 domains: academic excellence, social equity, organization and structure, and developmental responsiveness. And believe it or not, those domains that the School to Watch National Forum's organization adopted, I can brag for New York State a little bit, because it really evolved from the 7 essential elements that the New York State Ed Department adopted, I think in the late 80s, early 90s is when the essential elements were first developed. And were adopted as a doctrine for middle level education. The School to Watch kind of adopted those 7 elements and kind of morphed them into the domains. And I think if you put them side by side, like many of us have, they're pretty much just reworded and revamped a little bit and reorganized. So the School to Watch program, New York State got involved with the program in 2004. We have 37 schools recognized as School to Watch statewide. We're constantly looking for more. We're looking for any school that would be interested in the program and using it. The School to Watch program is hosted by the State Middle Schools Association, by New York State Education. We also have an involvement with the Liaisons, with NYSET. All of those groups strongly endorse the School to Watch program and are sponsors of that. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea. If you do have any questions along the way, please either enter them in the chat or, I don't think any of us are so proud that if you want to jump in and you have a question right off the bat, you certainly can ask any of that, because we really want to do is share the domains, open it up after that, and maybe try to get a little bit of a group discussion, a little bit of a forum going, a little bit of a roundtable going, and answer any questions, address any concerns, or just have any discussions about this last 12 months that we've all experienced that we hope we never have to experience again. All right. So with that being said, I think we're going to pass it off to our first domain. Allison on social equity has a presentation.
Hi guys. So I'm Allison. I'm the principal at Oceanside Middle School on Long Island, and I thought today I would just talk about how we during the pandemic use that social equity lens to support our struggling students. As you all know, more students this year were struggling than ever before, and for various different reasons. So we're in a hybrid model. So we have 2 cohorts, blue and white, and then we have students who opted to be full remote. And the cohorts come to school either 2 or 3 days a week. And early on, and we anticipated that for some students, especially for middle school students, who are some of them 11 and 12 years old, learning at home all day, 2 or 3 days a week by themselves, was just not really appropriate. The lack of socialization was unnatural for students to depend on refocusing and redirection to, to be home in your room with all of your toys and gadgets and phones and things. It was really difficult. It is really difficult for some of our students to engage. So always using that social equity lens, we saw definitely more boys and girls struggling, definitely our ELL population, our special ed population. And being a school to watch, it's something that we own, is that it's okay and it's expected. It is the expectation that we should be doing different things for different kids.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know her deal half the time.
And it's always our job to work to address the individual needs of each of our students. So first quarter, we worked with our teams, and I'm not going to share. Maybe I'll share some slides here. I put a few things together just so you could see. In a moment, we work with teams. We are fully teamed. So we have 4 7th grade teams, 4 8th grade teams, English, social studies, math, science, and a counselor, and AP. Oh, someone has to mute, sorry. So we sat down early in the year toward the end of the first quarter to go through the roster with each team and to identify kids that we already saw were failing, and to decide, okay, who was the point person, who's going to call that family, who's going to do some investigation, what we know, and then what is the plan going to be. So we are always, that data collection was very important. But then it came time to how we want to support these kids. So I guess that's the point that I want to focus on. We have an alternative suspension classroom in our school. We call it the task room, the alternative classroom setting. It's staffed by a school counselor who's paid as a TA. So that room was created as an alternative to traditional suspension so that we could, rather than suspend children out of school, talking about social equity, children needed to be in school the most, or typically children that would have been suspended home. We wanted to address their behaviors in school with school counselors so that there be some accountability through restorative practice, but then also some counseling and really address what was at the root of the problem. So we established this task room as an alternative to traditional suspension, but also as a way to help students who are dysregulated, who have a hard time regulating their emotions and their feelings, and therefore then get in trouble. So we have taught students that when they feeling uncomfortable and they anticipate making not the right decision, using a certain pass system to go to the task room for 5 to 7 minute break to employ certain strategies that just support social and emotional competencies. So the task room is great, and that's another presentation. But during COVID, we had to reimagine the task room. Good news, we don't have any discipline right now.
Hey, Allison.
Kids aren't leaving class, everybody's basically like frozen.
Hey, Allison, can you hear me?
So what we did with the task room is once we identified these children that were not learning at home, many of them are okay when they come to school. It's when they're home, they're doing nothing. And now if you're home for in blue cohort, you could be in school Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we don't see you again. until the next Tuesday.
Allison,
Or the next Monday, or if you're in our white cohort, you leave on Friday, we don't see you until next Thursday. So that's really hard for middle school kids. What we're doing in the task room this year is inviting children in that need additional support. So while there's lots of parents that would love for their kids to be in 5 days, that's not something we can offer for everyone. But for our struggling students, we've been making very basically inviting kids to come to the task room on their remote days so that the school counselor could model for them and with their ability to learn home. Sorry, can everyone's the counselor in the task room frozen? Camera moment, that might help. Just turn off your, I'm here. Can you guys?
I'm sorry, guys. Try to work on it. Allison, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
now?
you've been coming in kind of choppy.
Hold on. Okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
That seems a little better.
Okay, we don't use Zoom here, and for some reason, when I go on Zoom with the Chromebook, the bandwidth, I don't know. Okay, so can everyone hear me now? Is that good? All right, so I don't know exactly where I left off, but we were re-envisioning how we could use our task room. So what we've been doing is inviting children in who are struggling in the remote environment to work with the counselor on their remote days. At first, they might be coming in 2 days a week and, for the first couple of weeks, and then we got them down to some of them to 1 day, but to model for them how they should be learning at home when they're remote. So how do they avoid certain distractions? How can they stay on task? And helping them with their organizational skills, because what we're finding is for our kids that are less organized, less mature, knowing that you're going to leave school on Friday and not be back into school on Wednesday has made it kind of hard for them to hold themselves accountable. It feels like, oh, I'm just, not going to be there for a few days type of thing. So the school counselor in the task room has been working individually with the students who are struggling in the remote model. And in addition to helping them get on track with their schoolwork, helping them with anxiety, depression, and some of the other social and emotional needs that they have. For many of our kids, like we said, they're home alone. And for a 12-year-old to be home alone, it's hard enough to get a 12-year-old to do homework sometimes by themselves, but to be home alone for an entire school day, 2 to 3 days a week could be very difficult. So, in addition to the school counselor supporting their social and emotional needs and modeling for them how to learn in the remote environment at home, also helping them to dig out of a hole. So many of our kids got to the point where they just felt hopeless, like they were missing so many assignments and homeworks and things like that, the school counselor in the task room will work with the teachers to kind of say like, okay, what are the things that this child absolutely needs? What are the things that we could, move on from, to help the child like get out of that hole so they didn't feel so hopeless and desperate and like they couldn't do it. So we've been using the task room to help children. Now I can't hear. Sorry. So this has just been, I think very schools to watch this of us, if that's the word. I think I just invented it. But that's just, always being reflective, always looking how we can improve, always looking, how to address the needs of each individual student. So using the task room in this way is something that we're proud of. We were creative. We recognize every child is different. And the teachers, for some of these kids, just lacking that connection to that task room and establishing that relationship with Ms. Karlstrom, who's the counselor there, it gave that child like a sense of comfort for when they come to school, or someone that they know they could reach out to if they need help while they're home. And the teachers have been, something that we've always done in the task room. The teachers visit when their students are there. So to let the student know that they care, that they're here, they can answer individual questions.
I heard nothing about that.
So the teachers can come in and visit the students, help them, during their preps and professional periods to catch up those students at home. So I guess the long and the short of it is we recognize some kids struggled more during the pandemic, and we used our task room to help those individual students, and we're proud of that.
Hey, thanks, Allison. And I think you should be very proud of that. During this past couple of weeks, I spent quite a bit of time talking with Allison and about the task room and the others at Oceanside. And if it's something that you like, is sparks something of an interest with you, I'd strongly suggest that you reach out to Allison, because it is a fantastic program that they're running at Oceanside. It really services those adolescents incredibly well. Okay. Thank you very much.
I will post, if you can let me in on my other computer, I'm going to post a few slides to the chat if anybody wants to just look at it. And I put some links in there to describe the task room in its original form and other information, and we're always happy to share.
Thank you. All right, Winton.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen a little bit to talk about organization, structure, and process. Before I do, though, just as I looked at this domain, it really this year I've developed a greater appreciation, if that's even possible, for the Schools to Watch process and the Schools to Watch component. Because as I go through some of these, for us at Bay Trail Middle School, and we're a suburb we're in Penfield, New York, outside of Rochester, the things that we have in place and that we've been working on over the years, because we're Schools to Watch and it's a continual improvement process, are things that helped us face the challenges that we faced this year. So let me just share these. So as you look at these first 4 areas, and what I want to do, there's 9 of these components for organization, structure, and process. And I just want to touch on a few of them so that have really helped us this year. Having that shared vision, knowing that we all are working in the same goals and the same perspective and approaching things from the same way, that shared vision, it's, how do we live our mission statements? How do we make them really part of what we do? We talk about our mission statement in every faculty meeting. It drives the decisions we make. And that really helped as we had the conversations this year as well about what can we do with the guidance that we have and so on, but starting from that same vision. All of us who are administrators certainly have felt number 2 are the holding together the day-to-day processes and how we manage things. But that really functions for me in a team effort in the systems we have with our teacher leaders, with our admins, with our district leadership. Number 3 is one I want to touch on for a little bit. The school is a community of practice in which learning and experimentation and reflection are the norm. We've done a lot of work in Penfield around professional learning communities. Having that foundation this year has been crucial for the collaborative work, for teachers collaborating. We aligned our instructional practices so that no matter which teacher you had, you got the same remote assignments. So we have 3 houses. We have 1,100 students in the building. We have 3 houses. So I have 3 7th grade social studies teachers. Part of our collaborative process this year was they collaborated and shared lessons so that our remote lessons were actually asynchronous instruction with videos of the instruction and guidance that students could learn on the remote days. No matter which teacher you had the same assignment. So if kids had a friend or a neighbor that had a different teacher, they could collaborate outside of school on those remote assignments as well. Having that foundation of the PLC process has really helped that collaboration this year as well. Professional development shifted this year to what do we need? It was more of an on-demand type of professional development than one that we could really plan out, where we knew teachers were using Nearpod and so how can we get them training and support on Nearpod? So that shifted how we supported teachers when we supported teachers this year. So the number 5, the school is not an island unto itself, part of a larger educational system. One of the things I appreciate about our region that we're in outside of Rochester here is we have a middle school principals group that meets monthly, and we collaborate and we talk about what are the challenges we're facing, what are the solutions that we have, what has somebody else figured out. One of the topics we talked about this year was around synchronous teaching, where you've got some of your students at home and some in the classroom. Some districts are doing that. Different districts took different approaches to the hybrid model. Sean Williams and HFL, they're doing, everybody was in the building for a week, for half the group in the week, and the other half was at home, and then they switched on a weekly basis. We're more what Allison was talking about with cohort A on Monday, Tuesday, cohort B on Thursday, Friday. So we had a lot of good conversations in support of each other with the struggles and challenges that we're facing. How do you reach those kids that are struggling? So being part of that network, being part of this network and being able to reach out throughout the year is an important part. And it's one of the key parts for me as part of the organization structure and process. Number 7, the keywords in here this year for me, really the collective will to persevere. I know my staff, and I'm sure many of your staffs, and we're all feeling it, especially as we get to this time of year. I've had more teachers in conversations with staff this year that were emotion filled, not because of an incident, but just because that's where people were at. And so that conversation, how do we persevere? How do we support staff? One of the things our PBIS team did this morning, today was Wednesday, we only had a few kids in the building for one of our life skills 12-1-1 programs. So most of the staff had collaborative planning time this morning and office hours in the afternoon. Our PBIS team did a coffee house this morning. We had 3 of our music teachers playing some jazz. We had coffee so staff could come together and just have time to connect in person a little bit with people before they went about their day. How do we do that to help each other persevere and take on those challenges? We have the challenge with number 8 of still working. We want to continue to grow our profession. All of us, teacher shortage is out there. How do we continue to grow and nurture those teachers? We're fortunate this year with our community. And one of the great programs that our colleges have started in our area is our Teacher Fellow program, where there are students that are in teacher ed programs at our local colleges that are part of the Teacher Fellow program, and they're substitutes in our building on a regular basis. So I've got somebody right now that every Monday and Friday, she's in my building as a regular sub as part of the Teacher Fellow program. They're guaranteed a certain level of pay. It's a guaranteed commitment that they're here every day. That's helped us. Things like that have helped us with our substitute challenges this year. Our partnerships with our local colleges, they've been somewhat flexible with their student teachers, where many of our colleges have also, we've been able to work out agreements where their student teachers can sub if they're in the teacher ed programs. So I have a student teacher right now who was a teaching fellow with us in the fall. She's student teaching with us now, and she's actually filling in for one of my special ed teachers who's out for a couple weeks for surgery. So those partnerships, to build those partnerships, to develop those partnerships with our local institutions, help with many areas where those situations come up. And we may not have been able to say we need this previously, but because we have those relationships, we could build on them as we go through this crisis. The school includes family members in supporting the school's trajectory toward high performance. That I shared in the beginning, the involvement of our parents on our PTA. We also this year I have a Bay Trail Equity Steering Committee. We have certain parents that are on our equity committees helping us look at how equitable are our practices? How are we addressing racist issues in the classroom? We're involving our parents and our community in those conversations, and building that community support for what we do is crucial when you have a time of challenge and need to change structures and need to be flexible. We have a number of parents advocating for full return right now, and we're engaging with those parents in conversation about what needs to happen in order for us to do that. So those parent relationships are important as well. So from an organization structure and process standpoint, those components of Schools to Watch for us at Bay Trail this year have provided some of that support and enabled us to navigate this crisis. I'm sure many of the other Schools to Watch have felt the same this year. And if you're not a Schools to Watch, you have some of those systems that have helped you navigate. So as you reflect on this year, think about those systems that you have that have related to those areas that have helped you navigate that, and been able to work together with your staff and your community to have this be a successful year despite all the challenges that we're facing, and as we move forward with unknowns of what the future brings.
Thank you, Winton. And for our third domain, academic excellence, Mr. Cook, I don't know if you've noticed also, but the people I picked also, I tried to give a little geographic balance to the state as well, with Allison being on Long Island, Winton being in the Rochester area, and Mr. Cook and myself being up on the frozen tundra. All right.
Yes, thanks, Winton and Allison. Just going to try to follow in kind of the same idea, a little background. For me, I started my first redesignation application 2 days into my hiring here, and my second one came during COVID. So the use of the Schools to Watch process really allowed me to evaluate the school, but in the COVID, also look at the things that make us a strong middle school and evaluate each one of those separately, and maybe not do the same thing. And in most cases, weren't able to do the same thing, but what portion of what we did was the important part that we need to transfer over, COVID or otherwise, and really make work. So the screen that I'll share here with you is just the different elements of the academic excellence that I'm going to touch on. You know, I think it's pretty obvious that everyone that's probably Schools to Watch, and many of you that are here that are not, this is probably the first thing that people look at is the academic portion of it. And as Winton and Allison said, and Dave will say after this, there's a great deal of what they mentioned that really play into this and really support the academic portion of it. So, you know, we all have high expectations. And I think in COVID, the curriculum and instruction became the keys to how are we really going to do that? How are we going to get the best out of the curriculum and our instructional practices during our hybrid model? So we run a hybrid model. Kids are in 2 days a week, an A day and a B day group. And then we have Fridays, no student is in the building, really focused on the planning part that I'll get to in a moment. But that's our structure. So curriculum wise, we really had to look at, each one of our teachers had to look at their current curriculum and standards and really prioritize in a hurry, to be honest. I mean, I think that for us, last school year, March, June, we had this hope that we were going to be back to normal. So we got kicked it into gear starting in June and July and really started prioritizing those standards. And for instruction, I think this was the hardest for our staff to really try to figure out, how do I teach in this hybrid model? You know, I have 40% of my kids are in person on A day, another 40 on B day, and then I have this other 20 that's remote. And how do I give a proper and equitable instruction to those groups? That was challenging. And I'll be honest, it took us a while, and I won't even say that we're there now, but it's a constant, we've constantly had conversations and tweaking of that portion. And I think that's been the biggest thing for us, is evaluating our instructional practices, from flipped classrooms to synchronous, non-synchronous. We've tried everything, and we're still working through that process. But, and I think that we're working on still, how do we do that and give a depth to our curriculum? And that's another portion I think we're all a little bit struggling with. But I think coming back to certain things, we're really taking advantage of the fact that some of our kids aren't here every day. And as far as what I mean by that is, if a kid's supposed to come in Monday and Tuesday and they're struggling, we make them come in Wednesday and Thursday, and vice versa. And we have kids that are remote that we make come in on Fridays because there's not many kids in the building. So we make them come in, or we set up individual one-on-one or small group tutoring sessions remotely with kids and my teaching assistants and my aides and some of my teachers. And we're really using resources and thinking outside the box about supporting kids. And I didn't mention earlier, but to Witten's question, I think that's been the biggest positive for us, is we're having and forced to think outside the box in all of these areas. And that's really going to help us, in the hope that normalcy will come sometime soon and we'll be able to do that. Number 5, just the methods of assessment. This has been a big one for us. We've really worked to move away from quizzes and tests for multiple reasons. In person, we try not to give any assessments quiz and test style because it's just a waste of time right now. We only see kids twice a week in person. We can't waste a 40-minute class having them sit there and take a written test, which then leads to the second part. Allowing them to do that at home may not be the best and accurate representation of their ability and knowledge in certain content areas. So we've tried to push toward more projects, more portfolios and things like that, which in part of this entire process, the Schools to Watch, method of working and trying to make yourself better will help us in the long run. We were forced into it, but this will really help us with those strategies moving forward. So some of the things we were able to keep is our master schedule still allowed our teams to meet every other day. So Dave and his 6th grade team meet every other day for 40 minutes to really focus on students. And that's what we've tried to do this year, is focus on student needs. Do they need a home visit? Do we need to deliver meals on Friday? Do we need to get them in on an extra day? All of that stuff has really helped from our master scheduling, allowing us to have common planning time and working that. And then I'll just touch, the time and frequency of teachers to work together. We allow on Fridays. Fridays is mainly for planning. We do have, check-ins with students and things like that, depending on their needs. But our teachers are given Fridays to create their flipped classroom lessons, collaborate together,
right?
And things like that. And, Dave's here. I would have mentioned it if he wasn't here, but last fall or spring, he took a huge advantage of this, and another 6th grade ELA teacher created a project with both components, the science curriculum and the ELA, that he's going to take on and do as he moves down the line, just because of the collaboration that allowed. And again, he was forced into it, but those are the positives that come out of this.
So you have to think.
Dan, I'm just going to interrupt you for one quick second. If I can just remind everyone to please mute your microphone.
But
thank you.
While we're interrupted, I'll mention that the co-hosts can also mute other people. So if somebody forgets to mute, the co-hosts can mute them.
Dave, I think that's you.
That's all you, Dave.
I know, I'm trying. I'm getting it.
Don't mean to put so much pressure on you.
I'm worried. I'm really worried.
So I think the biggest thing, for the portion of academic excellence is just that constant evaluation of what we're doing. And I think that got heightened this year. it's been a struggle for everybody and balancing everything. You know, we have kids that move in and out remote, you know, for 3 weeks, and then they're back to in person for 2 weeks, and trying to balance and just make sure that our structures, as far as the curriculum and assessments, are aligned so that those students do not miss anything. And one last piece, we've started to introduce, we had some kids that struggled our first half of the year, and we've created we call it credit recovery at middle school, where we have kids coming in working on back assignments, and actually they're newly created assignments from topics from the first half of the year, but really to support that idea that what you didn't do the first half of the year is important to us, and we want to make sure you have all those skills moving forward. So I don't know, mine wasn't as pretty as Witten's, but I guess I'll take notes for next time. That's a, you know, Potsdam grad. I got to take better notes next time, Witten.
Yeah, just to tag on Dan, it's really, we really developed the project-based learning for some of the kids that might have maybe like sandbagged a little bit through the beginning of the year, taking advantage of disappearing like maybe some of your kids have done electronically, and making them maybe a little bit of accountable and just some appropriate topics for those classes. And I don't know if we've really seen it kick in yet. We haven't seen the results yet, but I think it's going to be pretty positive. Well, that's all right, Dan. Your presentation maybe not quite up to Winton's standards, but it'll certainly be better than mine because I don't have any fancy pages to share at all. It's just me.
You guys just need to talk about it more often, then you have resources to pull from. So,
see, I never see the guy. I'm telling you what, since we installed cameras in the hallway, that's what Cook uses. And every time he sees me walking up the hallway, boom, that door shuts as quick as can be. He knows I'm coming, and he just disappears. So, last but not least, developmental responsiveness. I would be lying if I didn't say when I talked to Winton and Allison and Dan about divvying up the domains, I kind of dibbed developmental responsiveness right off the bat. It's certainly the domain that speaks the loudest to me personally, and not that the others aren't lacking at all, but it's my gig. I think part of it's because I'm the classroom teacher, you know, and I have been for all of these years. I think it sums down, and for those of you not familiar with the details, like I could have a nice fancy, you know, page to share. Developmental responsiveness includes many different components. Challenging and consistent curriculum, and the faculty to adjust to that. After school programs, giving students a school voice in their building and so on. But basically what it comes down to is the development. Physical, social, emotional, academic, and all of those components based into one. And every single time, and multiple times a year when I review the developmental responsiveness, it just screams to me. Relationships, relationships, relationships. At this middle level years, it is vital that we all make those connections, develop those relationships. And if these last 12 months haven't screamed that out to us any more than they have, then we should just wake up and smell the coffee and realize how important making these relationships are. And I'll honestly admit, I may not be the best at keeping up on my administrative tasks and due dates, as Cook is laughing. Responsibilities is getting things done and tidy and neat and organized and all of that. But I'm going to tell you what, if anything I could be the most proud of over these 29 years is the connections I've made with many of these kids and the relationships that I've had. Dan is a relatively new administrator and actually former sixth grader as I was teaching sixth grade. You know, sees it from a different point of view as a student going through sixth grade, and now as my building principal. I think he can see the way kids and I interact. I think he can see the way the kids come back, college graduates and beyond. And I've had the luxury of having that time. And I don't think it's anything I've consciously done. I think it's just, quite honestly, it's me being me. And the part with developmental responsiveness, as important as it is to nurture these kids through these incredibly challenging times, it's the hardest to evaluate. It's the hardest to assess. Most of the other domains have something tangible, like a structure or an academic, your end of the year numbers and your programming and your social programming and how you're balancing that. Playing a role in an adolescent's development doesn't have a scorecard at the end of the year. And it's incredibly frustrating. I bet many of you remember in the classroom, like leaving at the end of the year and say, did I really make a connection with that kid? Did I really make a difference with them? And I bet there's a lot of times when you really honestly say, I don't know if I did or not. And sometimes you don't get that opportunity to get that feedback. Sometimes you do. One of them I got about 5 years ago, and one of them I just got 3 weeks ago. I guess I didn't really put the time frame together, but I have done a lot of work with both SUNY Potsdam and SUNY Plattsburgh teacher education program, doing a little bit of work of developmental responsiveness, basically making relationships and dealing with tragedy that eventually will occur in their classrooms. As many of you know, it'll be the 10th anniversary this fall of our Garrett Phillips, a 6th grader who was murdered October 24th, 2011. To say the least, seeing this blonde-haired, blue-eyed child in your classroom one day and gone the next and try to explain that to 100 of his best friends was challenging beyond belief. And if that doesn't stretch your developmental responsiveness, making connections, developing relationships, I don't know what is. But then, like I said, at the end of the year, do you really feel like you've had a successful opportunity to do that? I spent a lot of time with Garrett's best friend, the last person that was with him before he was murdered. Throughout the year, we developed an incredible relationship. He reached out to me, invited me to their high school graduation, not that I wasn't going to go anyway, and had the opportunity to go face to face and shared words that just were beyond emotional for me. And just 3 weeks ago, I was doing a workshop on tragedy and dealing with these kind of issues in your classroom with the SUNY Plattsburgh student teachers. And toward the end of the presentation, one of the students kind of spoke up and said, hey, Mr. Rom, excuse me, I have somebody that wants to say hello. And boom, just out of nowhere, blindsided, pops in another one of Garrett's classmates. And after we spent about 10 minutes just, weeping over the fact of talking, reviewing all of these issues, he spent we had a private one-on-one conversation in front of 50 other people, talking about the difference we as a team and 6th grade teachers made in helping them through the hardest year that they had ever. And I think that really screams, and I think the rubric of the developmental responsiveness, when you go through it more clearly, really addresses many of these issues and the importance of them. I'm glad, obviously I could talk for hours about developmental responsiveness and the other domains, but I think, our kind of time is running a little bit longer than I expected it to. But I would like to open it up if anybody has any questions or comments or anything else that they would like to share. We would be glad to address it now or reach out to you at any time. So,
and I would just add to that, if as you've navigated this year, we talked about how these domains and the schools to watch kind of impacted our schools and our programs this year. But if you have something that really has stood out to you or your programs this year that connects to what we shared, please share that for the benefit of the group, because this is where we generate those ideas and have that collaboration.
I think the only thing that I would share is, as a school to watch, you're constantly willing to reinvestigate, is there a better way to do something? So it sort of sets up problem-solving mindset within the culture of a building, and this year has required a lot of that. So that would be my contribution, I think.
Can I add something, David?
Sure.
Not only is that our mindset, we're always reflective, we're always looking to improve and to better ourselves. I think now being, I guess we've been like 12 years or so, what I'm finding, the community expects it of us. The administration expects it of us. It like comes along with being a school to watch, is that they know we're always thinking of, ways in which we can better ourselves, and the community and the administration are very supportive, which is very important when some of the things that we want for our students and our community cost money. They take our requests very seriously, and they know that at the middle school, where we really don't ever identify us as middle level educators as much as middle level advocates. We're always advocating for the students, advocating for the program. And that comes with that designation. The community expects it of us. It's like each year, well, what does the middle school have planned for next year? What are we looking at? And we have the support of the community because they know that we're always advocating for our students. And as the world changes in our environment here, we're always advocating to help our children be successful in the current climate and environment.
Yeah, and I think that kind of sums up a couple of different things. For those of you that weren't as aware with the School to Watch program, it is a lifelong learning. It is a constant evaluation. It's a 3-year term. It's not a win a prize and you're done kind of thing. So I think all of us that are involved in the School to Watch program know it's a life process. It's not just a one and done. And I think that's really another incredible feature of the program. Anybody else like to share or comment or whatever?
I appreciate hearing from all the schools. Thanks, Dave, and thanks for all your hard work. And thank you to all the presenters. You did a great job. This is another great session. Thanks.
Thank you, Don.
I would like to say the same thing, Dave. Your comments about relationships, excuse me. I'm feeling that's been like a struggle within our building this year, and our teachers are really having a hard time balancing the live stream and the in-person. They're very distracted by the remote live stream, and it literally is like an aha moment just now listening to the 4 of your presentations. It was that's what we have. I have to do a better job here is getting our teachers back into relationship mode.
And Jim, I don't know what screen you're on, but as soon as you said that, did you see like about 24 heads just kind of went nodding in confirmation? So we're not alone. I mean, we're all in this together. And I mean, that's as we involved in the program know, I mean, we're our own little group, and this is a built-in fraternity of sorts, and we love to share too. So those of you that aren't in School to Watch, that's an expectation of the program. So thank you for commenting about that. Thank you for sharing that.
And just to build on that a little bit, I don't know where folks are in their regions and things. We're having conversations about the potential of full return in the not so distant future. Part of that conversation is with my staff, my teacher leaders today. We got into a great dialogue about relationships, and that while teachers know these kids as a hybrid group, if we're bringing these groups back together, they haven't been together. And so getting teachers to think about building those relationships again, similar to the start of the year, even though it may be as we go into 4th quarter, is an important conversation that we've started to have as well. But it just ties into understanding, how do we build these relationships? We'll have some kids that are 6th graders that started the year virtual. And if we bring people back, they may be coming into the building for the first time ever. So how do we build that relationship with them? How do we get them into the building? as they make that transition as well.
Right. We just came back full last week. We've been doing 4 days since just past Thanksgiving, and it's been fun to say the least. It's been fun.
How's business in a school store? That's my favorite part. That was my favorite part of the visit.
School store is closed right now. We're out
You have to-
right now.
It's
Don't touch
closed.
it.
You
Don't
were
touch
our
it.
model. Our school stores, we created one last year after visiting your school, and it's been closed this year. We have to open up. We need the business.
We knew we do. We need to drum up funds, no question.
Well, everyone,
It's not your ordinary.
I guess timekeeper, I think we're at the magic hour. So I want to thank everyone. I appreciate you all taking the time. We're here for you. I think that's another commitment from both Christy and I. The School to Watch leadership team works for you. You don't work for us, and we're here to do anything and everything we possibly can to help you out. Whether you're a School to Watch or not, we're here to help. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Christy,
Absolutely.
Christy,
And I'll be sending out an email next Wednesday for our next meeting, which will be on St. Patrick's Day. And we'll be discussing the updates from the Board of Regents regarding assessments. Thank you, everyone.
Christy, can you hang on for a minute just so we can talk about next week for a minute?
Thanks, Dave.
All right. See you. Maybe.
I'll turn off the recording though here, so I'm not holding myself.